You can be the biggest star in the world. You can win Oscars. You can go quadruple platinum. But if you're not using your stardom, your celebrity, your platform to motivate and form 6 degrees of separation with other celebrities and people who can make a difference and influence, whether it be through sponsors or people who, lobby or government agencies or whatever you're trying to accomplish, if you don't use that which you've built or what you've been given to help others, then why do you have it?
Hey, it's Andy Petronic, and welcome back to episode number 147 of the Andy Petronic Podcast. This is where it's my job to talk health, life, and well-being with the foremost leaders in the field, giving you the joy, knowledge, and inspiration you need to live your best life. Coming up in a minute, I'm having a conversation with former NFL football player, Super Bowl champion, and all-around, awesome man, father, husband, do-gooder for the world, philanthropist. His name is Kevin Carter. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. I was, we are in the second week of the Whole Life Challenge. Yeah, currently, the Summer Whole Life Challenge. And I've been thinking a lot about purpose and success and what defines success. What would make the challenge, what would make the next week of my life successful? How would I look back over that week and go, okay, this week was a success? Have you ever thought about things that way? I had not thought about things that way. I've thought about my life that way, but I've never thought about it in the short term. What would make this week super successful? What would make me go back and go, you know what? God, what a great week. What a great month. This happened. Or I behaved this way, or I did these things. As I'm in the Whole Life Challenge, it could be related to I mobilized every day. I stretched every day. This week was a overwhelming success. Now, it may be connected one element with body, one element with, say, relationship. I stretched every day, and I acknowledged somebody in my family for something great they did every day. And maybe it's that. I don't know. But it got me thinking, should I be more intentional about choosing the things that I'm going to feel good about having done each week? And then looking back and going, you know what? I did it. Cool. It's kind of like having goals. I look at it a little differently than goals. I don't know. Goals trigger an unwanted thing for me. I don't really like goals, but this seems different than that. So I don't know. I just throw it out there for you guys to think about. I've been doing more workout videos, body weight workout videos. You can find them all listed and contained at andypetronic.com/workouts. And they're body weight. They're meant to be done in the confines of your living room or your kitchen. Kitchen would be kind of funny. Maybe your hotel room. That's more realistic. They don't require any equipment. They're fast and they're effective. Promise. So you can check them out there. And if you go to my website, you can also subscribe to my newsletter. So I put out a monthly newsletter on the first of each month that just talks about things I've discovered, explored, found, watching, reading, related to health, nutrition, fitness, inspiration, knowledge, fun stuff. So very pithy, short, bulleted. If you're interested, you can check it out when you go to my website, andypetronic.com. A few upcoming guests that I'll tell you about. Dr. Mark Goulston, he's a psychiatrist. He's on a mission to help others to help themselves by changing the way they listen. I shouldn't say they. I'm one of his prime candidates. And he makes it clear on the podcast that I'm one of his prime candidates. He's coming up. A guy named Josh Mance is coming up. He's a Army veteran who died on the battlefield, and then he came back to life. And if that doesn't interest you, should I say you're not human? It's certainly that part is incredibly compelling to me. I want to hear from someone who has done that. And let's see who else is coming up. Kevin Rose. Actually, I had the pleasure of speaking with him the other day, so he will be coming up. And a few more people I'm scheduling in the near future that I don't want to announce yet, but I'll let you know soon. My guest today, getting back to that, is Kevin Carter. And, he's not a household name. You might have known him back when he played in the NFL. But then again, if you weren't an NFL fan, I didn't know him. I never knew him. But I heard about him through his philanthropy work in Tennessee. And I watched a video about him where basically the video comes down to this one moment where the lights turn off in the stadium. And he says, then they turn on and he says, how the measure of a man is not what happens on the field, but what happens once the lights turn off. And that really kind of defines Kevin. He is about as honorable a human being as I have ever spoken with. He has this intense desire to help others and to make sure that he's using his celebrityness to further the joy in the world, to further the kindness in the world, to serve others. And now his main job in his household is taking care of his son, who's a senior in high school, junior or senior in high school, and about to go play football, probably. And his wife, not really taking care of him, but taking care of the house and then supporting them. He's going through a bit of it's tough. It's tough, and he wouldn't do it any other way. And I think that's really one of the big takeaways I got from Kevin, how willing he is to do that work, chop wood, carry water, the mundane stuff that makes up our daily life. And he talks about it with such a inspiring tone that you can't help but really be inspired by him. So I'm not going to talk about him anymore. I'm just going to introduce him to you. And here he is. Enjoy. Kevin Carter. Kevin Carter, welcome to the Andy Petronic podcast. I almost said Whole Life Challenge, but it's one and the same. You probably don't know much about that, but I know a lot about you. I know a little bit about you. I was just telling you before we got on.
I know a little bit about your the Whole Life Challenge. It seems that I would be an instant winner on the Whole Life Challenge. It seems that some of those lifestyle adjustments and changes have been a necessity for me. Right. After what I've done to myself over 14 years in the NFL. I've made a conscious decision that I want to live and live well and live for a long time and be healthy. So there are a lot of things that I do out of fear, for my own personal safety and future, just to ensure that I'll be here, that kind of fall in line with what you're wanting to achieve.
Well, that actually brings me to right very neatly right into the beginning of this that I wanted to introduce everybody to is your philanthropy work. And the thing that drew me immediately to you, I really, really, really want to talk to you, is the beginning of your video when you say it's not about what happens on the field. It's what happens when the lights go out and you leave the field. What do you do then? That's the measure of your call it hero work.
Yeah.
What can you tell me more about that? Where did that come from? What?
I think that's a really deep question. You've done this before.
I have done this before. Yes. I'm sorry if I need. Do we need to warm up on some other?
No, that's okay. You know what? I've been told that personally that I'm somewhat incapable of small talk. So
Okay.
I tend to dive into deep conversation with complete strangers. So,
okay. Well, cool.
So here goes. The term hero work to me is very organic, and it started from a time when I was a child. My mom and dad, a little bit about them. My dad worked for UPS for 32 years. My mom was an accountant that worked for the state, the Department of Revenue. Totally self-made. They, moved. They got married at 22 years old, had $400 in their pocket, and they left a small town in South Georgia and moved to Miami. And they started their life, and they wanted something better for their two sons. And when I was a kid, I was a dreamer. I was expressive. I was really oversensitive and somewhat dramatic as an adult. But when I was a kid, I had really bad eyes, and I had issues. I had problems. My mom had sickle cell anemia, which eventually took her life when she was 56, when I was 29 years old. And but growing up, she was always somewhat sickly. I'm going somewhere with this. And so when she was carrying me, she really experienced a lot of what they call sickle cell crises. And so when I was born and I couldn't see. My eyes were underdeveloped, and it took a little while, and they didn't know if I would have my eyesight. And so when I was a little older, when I was about 4 or 5 months old, is when they found out that I could indeed, after testing, that I could see and everything, I was responsive. And I just turned out to be really nearsighted, which later was fixed with LASIK. But when I was a kid, I had these really thick glasses, and I was pleasantly plump, and I had a bit of a speech impediment. So I had a lot of things that weren't necessarily making me popular on the schoolyard. But I was a dreamer. I was this person that, I would be emotional over things. I would react strongly. And my mom, God bless her soul, she was wonderful. She was always telling me that God had something special for me, and that God had a purpose for my life, that I was supposed to be someone who would make a difference. And I said, why do you say that? And she says that God has to prepare you to be the kind of person to be, to do great things in life. And you can't just achieve greatness and do these wonderful things and give up yourself in an unselfish way that doesn't seek accolades or glory for yourself, but looks to help others. And to me, that's what a hero really was. And so when I was a kid, my room was decorated with Star Wars and Superman, and I was a huge Superman fan. I loved the fact that he was this nerd reporter from a small town, and he'd take off his glasses and, go in a phone booth, and he saved the world. And he was so humble. He was benevolent. He was truth, justice, the American way. He was everything that was good, and he was virtuous. And he didn't use his godlike power for evil. He was, such the perfect person to have that level of strength, so to speak. Everyone can't be bestowed with that because some people would abuse it. So getting back to hero work, for me, I always said when I was a kid, if I ever built a platform, if I ever achieved something great, if I ever did something as to where I was one of those people that kids and people in society looked up to, that I would do things the right way. I would be that leading man. I would stand up for the person that couldn't fight for themselves. I would stand up for the underdog. I would look to help those less fortunate than me. I would look to enrich my community, look to use my platform. And, God has a sense of humor, I think. I'm not really religious as much as I am spiritual, because I think religion, people fight wars and kill each other and, curse each other over religion. But I don't think God really represents any of that. So for me, doing God's work, being that person, I think his sense of humor came into play because I was always saying what I would do. And, as a freshman in high school, I was 5'9". I was still pleasantly plump. I still was not a good athlete. My feet had gotten really big. My arms had gotten really long, and my head had gotten really big, and my butt had gotten big, but I hadn't gotten any taller. And I'm walking around high school about 5'8", about 195, 200 pounds, and I'm in marching band. Okay. I go out for my JV
you and I, but I just got to stop you for a second. That was my whole life growing up. I was a musician. I was a band geek. I was a trumpet player, and
that's awesome.
Well, when you're in high school,
right?
I was looking for, how do I get out of this? Like, I'm not in the cool kids club, and yet this is what I'm good at. So I was kind of stuck, and that was a big source of spiritual kind of work that I had to do on kind of my, kind of letting go and forgiving myself for judging all the gifts that I was given. But yeah, so go ahead. I'm sorry. I just had to. No. You and I are fellow band geeks.
Yeah, fellow band geek. Look, I went out from my JV football and basketball team my freshman year, and I didn't make either one of them. I went to a big public high school in Tallahassee, Florida, and they had cuts, and I didn't make it. And I had an older brother. My older brother is 2 years older than I. He was a complete stud. He was 6'4" by the time he hit his freshman year. Wow. He was, just all world. He was smart. He was good looking, and I was his nerd brother. And I was his band geek brother who was, just a mere shadow of what he was physically.
Yeah.
God's sense of humor came into play my sophomore year, because over that summer between my sophomore and junior year, I grew about 8 inches. And
wow.
I grew into just a man's body by the time I was 16 years old. I mean, I was, 6'4", and basically everything I did on the football field made sense. Everything I tried to do athletically, I got better. They said, do this, you'll get faster. I got faster. Do this, you'll get stronger. I got stronger. Here, do this, line up here and run and hit. And it just worked. And so I garnered a lot of success really quickly. And I had one of those, there's an old 80s movie, Can't Buy Me Love, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's where the guy is mowing lawns and he's a pizza delivery guy. And, of course, the popular girl in school decides to, remake him. And, he becomes the stud and his life changes overnight. That's kind of what I went through. I went from being this band geek who, girls didn't look at, I wasn't in the cool kids club, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And then I became this football phenom. And next thing you know, I was homecoming king and, everything, all world, all American, could go wherever I wanted. So having that platform, having my life change that dramatically really charged me with a responsibility. I could go on and be what I saw, which was pompous, cocky, and enjoy all the fruits of superficial, shallow, labor affords those people in this world that don't necessarily deserve the wonderful lives they lead, in my opinion. But, or I could have been the type of person that you would say, wow, I was pleasantly surprised when I met Kevin Carter. Man, what a good guy. Wow, what wonderful things he's doing. Wow, that's an interesting life choice. I wonder why he chose to do this instead of pursuing something bigger or whatever. And that's who I wanted to be. And like I said, I had the opportunity to either go one way or the other. And I chose to honor the things in me that made me who I am. So wow. Hero work for me is you can be the biggest star in the world. You can win Oscars. You can go quadruple platinum. But if you're not using your stardom, your celebrity, your platform to motivate and form 6 degrees of separation with other celebrities and people who can make a difference and influence, whether it be through sponsors or people who, lobby or government agencies or whatever you're trying to accomplish, if you don't use that which you've built or what you've been given to help others, then why do you have it? We're not put on this planet by God and given this talent to just, I can travel whenever I want to. And I go overseas twice and we go to Beaver Creek every year. We have a house in Destin. And, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Those things are great. And it's not a crime that you have them and that's your life. But there's so much suffering. There's so much pain. There's so many things that just are not fair about this world. And for me, when you're watching that video about hero work, I'm really discussing what I do with Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's just, kids don't deserve cancer. Kids don't deserve any of that. Kids are innocent. I don't care. They can have the worst parents in the world, but, we hate the parents and love the kids. I mean, children are God's gifts to this planet that can, forge and shape our future. They're our only hope. I look at my son and I'm like, dude, y'all got to clean up a mess. So if we're going to do that, then we have to empower them. We have to help them. And, you know, kids with life-threatening illnesses, one of those things that just touches my heart. So I'll let you go on to your next question.
Jeez, well, good grief. I mean, where do I go from that? In the middle of that, I was going to say, you know, hey, just preach, just go. Because this is, I mean, the way you handled yourself is quite uncommon, I think, these days. And it's a shame that it's quite uncommon, because we see, well, either it's quite uncommon or we don't see as many, or they're not as publicly visible because it's not as dramatic. You don't invite the drama that, you know, a lot of celebrities invite, a lot of celebrity athletes invite. And it's not as, I guess it's not as compelling. I mean, I think it's really compelling, but for some reason, you know, it doesn't hit the, you know, flash news brief because nothing crazy happened.
Doesn't move the needle.
It doesn't move the needle as much. It's moving the needle in a much more like foundational ways, kind of like a tsunami. Remember the tsunami that hit in the Indonesia? I don't know when that 10 years ago. And I remember watching the video of that, and I always thought of tsunami was this, you know, 1,000-foot wave that came in, but it looked very little. But man, when that thing hit, I mean, it just inundated, and that's more like what I see your work as. You don't really see it coming, and it's not dramatic, and it's not, you know, oh my God, but the impact and the drive of that is just, it's a tsunami. It's yeah. The
lives that we can touch and the impact that we can have. I know that, you know, through this one particular event that I do through my foundation, it's called Waiting for Wishes. And we've given $2.5 million to Make-A-Wish over 17 years through this one event, one night a year. And something like that, you know, there's so much work behind the scenes.
Yeah. We
have 50 celebrities that come in and we fly them in, we put them up. We have sponsors. We have we have alcohol and the wine, the restaurant, the travel. I mean, there's so many moving parts to this event. And like you said, it's not, the work that we put in is not sexy. It's not dramatic. The calls, the net that we cast for celebrities to come to this event, I mean, we send out 100 asks hoping to get 40 because people's schedules change. And, you know, when I invite the celebrities, I say, you come once, I'll never have to beg you to come again, because that's how powerful this event is. I'm that confident in the power and just how wonderful this event is. And you're going to come to that event too. And you're going to be there every year after that. After you come once, I promise you. It's that awesome of an event. We'll get to that later. I'll talk to you off camera about that.
Okay.
But it's not sexy. But then all of a sudden, on the night of, when you realize how much, you know, we're going to stroke, you know, $125,000 check, you know, anywhere from there to $200,000 to make a wish from that effort. And people look around and they look in one room and they see, you know, Vince Neil, or they see Darius Rucker or Rick Springfield, or this year we had Jesse Waters and Dana Perino from Fox News. Wow. We have, you know, football players, we have Hall of Famers, and we have UFC fighters, and Tito Ortiz is in the room, and, you know, Chuck Liddell and Ken Shamrock and all these people. And we have this eclectic mix of celebrities that come together. And, you know, that's sort of the tidal wave, because, you know, the devastation, if you watch that video, you know, it came rolling in, and it wasn't really dramatic. You didn't see this movie like tidal wave, but, you know, there was a video that I saw at that event, and it was someone that was on top of a hotel that was about 7 or 8 stories high. And the water level came in, and it just kept getting higher and higher. And the person literally looked over the building, and the water was right there.
Right.
You know, that's the realness of how much water came into that area. It was that scary. So, yeah, I think, you know, my dad always said, you know, speak softly but carry a big stick. You know, your actions speak louder than words. I live by those things. The flash that people try to create, the traction, the sheer fact that there's no such thing as bad publicity. I think people are looking for shock value, and it sickens me. And I look in our society, and I know we're live on YouTube, but I'm going to say this: it sickens me that one of our leading ladies, that our young women look up to, is someone who's famous for making a sex tape and being on a reality show. And now she's the spokesperson for Maybelline and all these great products. That's who you want your life to emulate. Yeah. That's a shame. Our young women don't know, that this young lady, this brave young woman, Malala, won the Nobel Peace Prize. They don't know about her life. They haven't watched her TED Talk. They haven't watched her be interviewed by David Letterman, which is a great show on Netflix.
I haven't seen that show. I got to watch that show. I forgot to.
David Letterman's had Malala. He had President Obama.
Wow.
He had just a very eclectic mix of people. And he was deep with them. But we don't celebrate that.
Yeah.
We don't celebrate that kind of courage. We don't celebrate people who do just extraordinary things. We're looking for shock value. We're looking for the honey boo boos. We're looking for the things that move the needle, and their shock values off the charts. While there's real life, there's real suffering, and there are real problems that need to be fixed. Yeah. And people stand diametrically opposed to one another that live right next door to each other, that go to church in the same place, their kids play in the same playground. But you bring up, taxes, religion, and abortion, or same-sex marriage, and you have an enemy for life.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you don't even have to look across the street. Sometimes it happens right in your house.
Yeah.
Who
are we? What is,
right.
Is the goal of argument for us to come together and have a critical discussion that accomplishes something? Or is it for me to listen to what you say, spin it 10 degrees, and attack you another way?
Well, it's funny. My son is 11. Yeah, my son is 11, and one of his best friends is evidently, they're both athletes. They both play baseball. They both play soccer. They're very, very athletic kids. But evidently, his best friend is really good at debate. He's gone to, and he was going to sign up for this debate camp, and he wanted Dashel to go with him. And Dashel's like, I don't want to go to debate camp. Alex is really good at that. I'm not so good at that. Ordinarily, I would say, well, if you're not so good at it, maybe it's a good camp for you to attend. But I'm not. Debate is one of those things. Like, it fits in this category of you're talking about. Like, we're teaching kids that it's a good idea to get in a room and learn how to tear apart what someone else is saying, spin it however you need to spin it, to try to convince people that your opinion is the right way, and then fight about it. Like, that's something we celebrate. And I don't get, how does that advance the conversation? How does that bring us together? It continues to teach people that is the way to communicate, and there's no communication going on at all. It's two bulls, just going head to head, battling. Yeah. I did something interesting at the beginning of this whole life challenge. I got my blood tested through Health Test Express. I wanted to see if 6 weeks of eating the way I know serves me and improves my life. I wanted to see whether or not it actually did something on the inside. And Health Test Express is the easiest way I know to do that. They send you a little test kit. You prick your finger, a little tiny drop of blood on your finger. You have to squeeze it a little bit to get blood to come out repeatedly, because you need about 5 good-sized drops onto a piece of cardboard. There is no going to a lab, no scheduling a time to go to a lab, no going to a lab, no waiting in line, no getting a vein punctured by a lab tech and then wearing a Band-Aid in the middle of your arm. It is, you do it right in your house. You put these little droplets of blood on the cardboard, and bing, bang, boom, you are done. You mail it in, and about a week and a half later, you get your results. I got my results. It was funny, I was joking with someone. They are every color of a stoplight. Some are red, some are yellow, some are green. And I don't know how they're going to change over the course of the challenge, but we will see if they do. And listen, if you want to give it a try, which look, I don't care if you're in the Whole Life Challenge or not. I don't care if we're pre-game, post-game, mid-game. If you're not doing this, you do not know really what's going on inside your body. And that's the mother load. Knowing what's going on inside. I mean, sure, you can look good on the outside, but what's going on the inside? So if you use the coupon code Whole Life, WHOLELIFE in all caps, you'll get a 20% discount on your first kit. Go to www.healthtestexpress.com/WLC. That's www.healthtestexpress.com/WLC. That's it. Let's get back to the show.
I heard a discussion last night, and I really try to stay off of any news. I think if I'm going to watch a news channel and just get the facts, I'll watch like BBC, just get just the bare bones facts, because I don't want any spin, because any network you put on has a spin, whether it's for our president or against our president, and nothing is just objective.
Right.
But I was watching a discussion last night as I was turning across the channels, and it was someone who's a famous television host, and I'm not going to name their name, and they were arguing with an activist, and the activist was talking about climate change and the things we need to do, like recycling and things we can do to preserve our rainforest. This is an issue, and we're not trying to put it in your face, but science says, I'm a Superman fan, and Jor-El tried to tell the council that the planet was in danger and was going to blow up, but no one listened to him. So he was able to get his son out on a craft and send him to Earth. But so the science is there, and she's having this young woman is, and I felt so bad for her, because this television host is tearing her apart. She's talking about the hole in the ozone layer, chlorofluorocarbons or whatever, and this is scientific stuff. And she's going on and she's saying that, we can cut emissions by doing this. And if everyone will just, if we can all say that we can recycle such and such, amount of pounds of plastic per week in our household, and we can do this and yada, yada, yada. And he just starts tearing into her. And he's like, well, how come, the most liberal people in those liberal cities that are talking about climate change, how come their cities are the dirtiest? I mean, have you ever been to Portland, Oregon? You know how dirty, and they're just the most, liberal, active people, and they talk about the ozone layer and this and that. And I'm like, and she said something. She said the most powerful thing back to him that was wonderful, and it should have shut him up, but it didn't, of course. She said, we can do both. We can clean up our streets, and we can clean up the ozone layer. It's not one or the other. Right, why are you fighting me on something that will help all of us? This is not a liberal agenda. This is a human agenda.
It's a human agenda, yes.
And it was just like, and that's the crux of what we go through in our societies. Like, are we going to be objective and have a real critically thought out conversation, or do I just want to tear apart your argument and make you look silly?
Yeah.
It's like, we don't get to solution.
Yeah.
If all you do is spin, it means you never listen.
You never listen. Yeah.
Never take someone else's viewpoint into consideration. And that is the most dangerous thing that any society can do in mass numbers. Historically told, if you don't believe science, if you don't believe anything else, history will teach us. It will.
Yeah.
If we don't make some changes. But
one of my teachers, the first coach I ever had, this is about 23 years ago when I first started working with her, she said, seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
To understand someone else first. Like when I'm in an argument with my wife, usually it's because she doesn't understand what I'm saying. Like, she doesn't understand my point of view. And if I slow down enough, I can get myself to and this usually happens slower than I'd like it to happen. But okay, how do I understand where she is first? And God, that's such a hard thing. It's such a hard, I get tripped up by that constantly. But I fortunately do some work and
22 years of marriage. I understand.
Yeah. Well, it's not, you don't get married because you want the easy road.
This is true.
Although you don't know that.
Because you want something real.
Yeah. 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 And for me, it didn't really start getting real, I don't know, 10 years in, 11 years in. Like when you start to realize, like, we're in this, and nobody's going anywhere. And it's almost like you're chained to this person, which is actually a good thing. It serves you. It serves us as humans to have that chain, but it's too easy to cut chains, to cut ties these days, I think. I want to ask you, and this is maybe a little less deep, but maybe not. Where are you given your career as an NFL football player? This is very present for me because I have an 11-year-old son, and he loves to play flag football, and so he plays flag football. He plays soccer. Where are you at with concussion? With concussion protocol, with your kids, with the whole? I mean, God, I watched Will Smith's movie. It is unbelievably disturbing what is going on in the world of what we're discovering about the little tiny traumas that go on in the brain all the time.
I think the real crime, the real danger here is the years that the knowledge and the understanding of what was actually happening. I think so many years that evidence was withheld. Right. I think no one knew. I think now that we know, I think we're so much better at assessing it. Dare I say, the game practice, the preparation is smarter. The athletes are better conditioned. It's kind of a catch-22 because people are better conditioned. Evolution of man. People are bigger, faster, stronger. Yeah. It's a more violent game, but at the same time, no one's doing 2-a-days, 3 hours, both practices and pads anymore, like I went through. Right. It's like when I go to an NFL training camp these days, I say, man, I could be playing now. If I play now, I could play 20 years ago. I know I played 14, but hell, I could play 30 years if the game was like this. Right. And it's not as barbaric as a game anymore, but it's still a violent sport. It's still everything about football that you think it is. It is. And it's about your will. It's about, how much am I willing to sacrifice my body in the name of competition for this lifestyle, for achievement, for glory, for the gladiators, triumph in the arena. How much are you willing to do that? And how much do you think about your actual safety and going forward? Yeah. I mean, you may go to the Hall of Fame. You may, break the record for sacks or touchdowns or whatever. But if you're 50 years old and you don't know your name or you can't tie your shoes, you're not around to enjoy your family, and they're not, you're not around for them to enjoy you. Yeah. It's definitely real where I am with, I have one son, he's 17, and for the last 6 years, he's been a basketball player and loved basketball. He's 6'7" now. And he's 6'7", he's 230 pounds, he's a big kid, and he's been just a phenomenal basketball player, traveling all over the country, camps, wanting to go play college basketball. Kind of got, just long and short of it is he kind of got a little tired of basketball because of the volume and the whole AAU. It's dirty, it's political, it's, there's all kinds of things. He played on a shoot contract team last year, played with 10 new kids every weekend all over the country. He didn't enjoy it, didn't love it anymore. So he went out for football. So I thought I was out of the woods. I thought my son is a basketball player. We don't have to cross that bridge of that degree of bodily sacrifice in playing this sport. Because that's what it comes down to. How much are you willing to put yourself in harm's way to play this game? Yep. And for me, I never thought of it that way because football, I played 14 years. I never missed a game. Wow. I was always healthy. I had a few injuries here and there, a few off-season minor procedures, but As far as ball players go, I am, knock on wood, I'm just one of those people that it never really hurt me that bad.
What position did you play? What position did you play?
I was a defensive end. I was a defensive lineman.
Jesus. So I don't have no idea how you did that. That's amazing.
I had my hand in the dirt for 14 years. And like I said, it just didn't hurt me. When I started to think about what I was doing to myself, it finally hit me like, man, I've been playing this game for a long time. And man, there's some days where I'm, wow, when I got to that point, I was in year 14 and I retired. I just walked away from the game, and I walked away healthy on my own terms.
Yep.
And the game didn't retire me with a blown out knee or a broken back or a torn Achilles or nothing like that. I just walked away.
Do you attribute any of that to the fact that you didn't do sports for so many years of your young life? I mean, so many kids now are starting football when they're 6.
Yes, and to your point, as far as what your kids do, is the soccer and the flag football.
Soccer and baseball and flag football, yeah.
I played soccer and baseball my entire life. I did not play football until middle of my sophomore year.
Right.
The spring of my sophomore year going into my junior year is when I played football for the first time. My body didn't have the wear and tear. I started later. My body was ready. It was mature enough. My bones were hardened. And when I worked out and got better and got stronger, my body came along with me. I wasn't out of balance. I had no bad habits because I hadn't been playing since I was 6.
Yep.
And in my head and doing a bunch of stuff and probably listening to someone when you're 6 or 7 in that Pop Warner football, that's a little dangerous because not everyone knows how to teach the game.
Yeah, right.
And can you really effectively teach an 8-year-old to hit someone the right way?
Yeah, right.
I mean, can you really teach children that are that young the proper way to keep themselves out of harm's way and not do something to another child that may really injure them? It's just, in my opinion, before you've hit puberty, you should not hit anyone.
Yeah. It's interesting because we, I've been coaching baseball now for the past 6 years, and in baseball, I mean, and I never really thought about it this way. Baseball is a thinking man's sport. There's so much, and I think that's why a lot of people drop out of it. A lot of kids, it's not for a lot of kids because you have to be patient. You have to be, it's boring. You're sitting out on the field waiting for the ball to come to you, but the moment that ball comes to you, you've got to be ready for action. Within a split second, and one of the ways we were just talking about this last night as to how that prepares you for life. Like I learned as a Marine that I need to be prepared in any situation. So when I just habitually now, when I walk into an airplane or when I go into a movie theater or I go into a crowded space, I'm always thinking, what's my exit plan? Where would I go? Would I dive on top of my kid if there was a stampede of people, and like, how would I do it? And where would I go? And I don't even think about it now. It just happens. But that same kind of readiness has to happen in baseball. But I'm relating it to football. The split second decision you make to dive at a person or, go helmet first at a person or versus not, and whether or not a kid can actually make that kind of split second decision and whether that's fair to make a kid. Because in baseball, usually there are no major consequences. You miss the ball goes under your legs. You throw it to the wrong place. You throw it over the head of the first baseman or whatever. But in football, yes, those things could happen, but so could
you hit someone the wrong way and you're paralyzed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's something I hadn't really considered. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a look. I am not a fan of youth football. I'm like flag football all day long, but I'm just not a fan of you're out there and you're 10 years old and you're smashing people.
Yeah, right.
Other people feel differently, but you know what? 14 years in the NFL, didn't start playing until later.
We on my baseball team, Derek Mays. I don't know if you know. Do you know Derek Mays?
I don't.
He was a Green Bay Packer. Went to Notre Dame. Super Bowl winner. But his son was on my son's baseball team. And we used to talk about baseball and, hey, when is he going to let his kid play football? He goes, Kid's going to be athletic. He's going to play basketball. He's going to play baseball. He's going to play, whatever he wants to play, but he ain't playing football. Until he gets to an age where, almost exactly what you just said, until he gets to an age where it's appropriate, but we got to save that because kid's incredibly gifted. And, it's interesting. I got a lot out of that conversation.
Yeah. If you talk to most professional athletes, like ball players, football players particularly, we all feel the same way. Like there aren't a lot of us that will endorse having our children play, when they're 8 years old,
right.
Hitting people, playing tackle football.
Right.
Most of us feel that way,
right?
And it's funny when you get a group of us together. There are so many of us that didn't play until later, or we were 2-sport athletes or 3-sport athletes that just kind of fell into it as kind of the thing that it just favored us as timing, or but the stories you don't hear, like when you hear about a baseball phenom or a kid who was really good at soccer or a swimmer, they've been doing it since they were 3. Baseball,
right.
I mean, the kids been hitting like this and doing all this and learned this when they were 5 years old. They have their video, whatever. Football isn't that way.
Right.
Most times you don't have like that kid who was a phenom at 5 years old and he's knocking the crap out of people. Most times that kid is done by high school, or even if he plays in high school, it's all about the timing. And I just think your body has a shelf life, and there's only so much abuse is really going to take. And I think it's timing. And I was really lucky that way because I caught football. Football found me at a time where I was growing, and I grew into everything that I wanted to do. And it was a very natural progression.
Well, there's a warriorness to football that is not present in a lot of those sports you were mentioning, with triathlon or gymnastics or swimming or whatever. And, as a warrior, I don't know if I'm a former warrior, a former Marine, which they say once a Marine, always a Marine, man. Always a Marine.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. No, right. No. They say the big thing is you're not an ex-Marine, you're a former Marine because you're always a Marine. But, I would never say that learning the things that I learned. Now, they're very essential life skills that I learned as a Marine, but that doesn't mean it's appropriate to teach a 10-year-old that. You don't want 10-year-olds running around with M16s and because they haven't developed that discernment to, right. and the decision-making stuff that is required. And when it comes to life and death stuff, which I know football is a game, but it's closer to life and death stuff than a lot of other sports. So
go ahead.
I get what you mean. Like there's an ageness that I think that is appropriate for those kind of combative sports. That doesn't mean that the skills aren't good. Hey, get out the ladder and do the ladder training. Get out the hurdles and do the hurdle training and do the lateral shuffles and the all the skill, like incredible skill work you can do and have fun. Throw a football and learn plays and all that stuff. But in terms of the combativeness, not so good.
That's the element of football that's different than any other sport.
Yeah.
And unless you're a boxer or a wrestler or something like that, something that's physical, that nature. But there is a physicality, a malicious intent of violence that if you have it, if you can tap into it, if you can tap into that warrior mentality inside of yourself, if you have reckless abandon and no regard for your own safety, then it helps you.
Right.
It serves you well. That's why, and I tell people this, and I tell them very seriously. I said, look, you may think that I'm a polished, well-spoken, nice guy. I'm spiritual. I do charity work. I'm a good dad. I try to be a good husband. I do dishes. I mean, there's a lot of redeeming qualities about me. But when it comes to crossing the white lines, if you ever met that guy, he's a different guy.
Right.
He's an honorable man.
Yeah.
And he's an honorable warrior. But if you are in his path and you are the person who is on the other side of the line, then I have no regard for your safety. Right. I have no regard for you at all. You are the enemy. You are the opposition. And either I beat you or I have to go home and get a day job.
Right.
And so that's the way I look at it. And my dream is too strong for you to kill it. My drive and everything that I've worked for, all that emotion comes out when you step on the football field. The blessing of being able to play a game play a sport for a living, to live in a country where you're free enough to do that. And, it's a Sunday afternoon and there's a flyover by the military and they're stretching out the flag and everything else. It's like, man, that's a blessing. Like that's fun. That's the reward. So all the training and all the ladder drills and the working out, all that stuff and the X's and O's is great. But that heart factor, and I know that's kind of probably consistent with any sport. You feel that motivation and that love.
Yep.
But violence in football, it comes to a whole new level.
Yep.
Most of the guys you talk to, football players, we're all husbands and dads, and we probably seem like nice guys. But you being a Marine, I know that
there's a switch. There's a switch.
Like when you walk into a theater and you're looking for the exit,
yep.
and you're looking for, okay, how many windows? Where, I was never in the military,
yeah.
Okay, but I think the same way. I'm wired in such a way as to where I'll never sit in a restaurant or in a public place with my back to the entrance.
Yeah.
If I do, I'm sitting across someone that I trust.
Right. Because they got your back. Yeah.
One of those little things, and that's. But football players are different, and I just think being a child, when I hear these coaches say, don't be soft, run through them, put your head in there, come on, don't be a P word, rah, 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 rah. And you're like, this kid is 9.
Right.
I'm like, he just got through making a macaroni thing for his mom for Mother's Day, man.
Yeah.
I mean, You're telling him to, to kill this other kid. I'm like, there's time for that.
Yeah.
And there's a time when it's appropriate for you to step into that type of aggression,
yeah, right.
As a grown up, but it doesn't have to come when you're 8.
How did your training change? And this is changing gears just a little bit. How did your training change once you got out of playing professional football, being coached, being guided, told what to do, and also having to do it for a living? How do you stay fit now? I guess this is one big question.
Sure. I think the evolution of the sport has made it such that it's just like anything else. I mean, the people, even when you're a Marine, it's like the people whose lifestyles aid in what they're doing, those people whose lifestyles go along with what they're doing, the sport will favor. Just like, while I was playing football, I was lucky. I married my wife. I married Shima when I was 22. I proposed to her my rookie season in the NFL.
Uh-huh.
We've been married for 22 years now. And she is a bit of a health nut, does yoga. She's run like 7 marathons.
Wow.
She's run like 5 marathons, about 7 half marathons. She's done a bunch of triathlons, and she just like, she won't say it. She'll say, "Oh, my knees hurt, and I'm this, and oh, I'm fat, or I'm this, or I can't." But my wife is 44 years old, and she's probably within 5 pounds of the day that I met her. And she hasn't changed, and she looks the same, and she's one of those people that you're just like, you kind of hate them a little bit.
Yeah,
because,
right.
She's so smart. She has her crap together, but she eats well, and she's healthy. And so being married to her, having a lifestyle that was healthy, that made good life choices, and it helped me. And so I was always healthy away from the sport. I never was one of those guys who would put on 20, 30 pounds in the off season,
right,
and I'd have to get back into shape with this major overhaul when the season came around. We were always taking walks, hiking. In my off season, my wife's working out, 3 or 4 days a week. Would you just join her, or would you? Yeah. And so every off season, I was either doing a spin class, as the workout trends changed. So I was either doing a spin class or a boot camp class. And then later on, I started when I first retired, she got into CrossFit. So I joined a CrossFit, box. And
I don't know if you know this, but I started the 9th CrossFit gym in the world back in 2004. And awesome. So I'm kind of familiar with CrossFit.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
She got into CrossFit, so I got into CrossFit. And we were doing that for a while, and she injured herself doing something because she's just crazy and goes way overboard. And so we ended up we'll still do CrossFit. We'll still do we do yoga, and she'll get a hair up her butt and she'll say, I think I want to try this new Orange Theory. Yeah. So we've been going to this Orange Theory thing.
Yeah, cool.
So we're always doing something like that. Our vacations are, we went to Victor, Idaho, about 3 years in a row over the summer when I think our son was probably from the time he was 9 or 10 to about 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. And when we would go out there and we fly into Jackson Hole and we drive an hour to Victor. Victor's a population of 700 people. Wow. And, we rent a cabin. We rent bikes and we go back and forth to the general store. We cook our food and, all vegetables and everything else. And there's a working garden at the place and we, take vegetables. And our vacation, we're hiking every day. We took our 10-year-old on a 32-mile, mountain bike course, just adventures, and so our kid is kind of grown up that way. And it's our lifestyle where, when we go anywhere, we go on vacation, we're bringing our workout clothes.
Yeah. Right.
Where we go to the beach, we're planning to take a long walk. We're going to run down the beach. We're going to do something. So having that lifestyle away from football while I was playing kind of aided in my transition to post-football.
There's nothing like opening your fridge at lunchtime, seeing a stack of meals sitting in there that are from a kitchen like the Good Kitchen, that are going to be delicious, that are compliant to the Whole Life Challenge, to a Paleolithic diet, to a ketogenic diet, to a vegetarian diet, whatever parameters you set. And it's going to be delicious, and you don't have to think. Oh, it's such a relief. Whether you are doing that at your house or you're doing that at work, where you, at the beginning of the week, you just bring all your meals in, put them in the work fridge and keep them there, or bringing them in one day at a time. You need a microwave to heat them up or a stovetop. And I'm a little crazy. I don't even heat them up. I eat them cold. So I just want to remind you that if you have not done this before, you can get 15% off your first order if you use this link, thegoodkitchen.com/WLC. That's thegoodkitchen.com/WLC. Let's get back to the show.
Post-football, for me, like I mentioned earlier, I know that I've done a lot of damage to my body.
Yeah.
And I know I have the blessing and the luxury of being a former NFL Players Association executive committee member. And when you start involving yourself in these programs and second career savings plan and medical plans and future ongoing medical issues and screening and taking care of our older players, when you start getting into policy and then to the actual inner workings of that from an administrative standpoint, which I was on that side of negotiating, collective bargaining agreement, stuff like that. And we look at all these programs and continuing education and stuff like that. When you start looking at those things, those are things that are in place to enrich the lives of former players. So I had to meet with a lot of these former players, and you meet these guys, and they're people that I grew up watching, and they're maybe 15 to 20 years older than me. So they're not that much older,
right.
And you start talking to them, and some of them look great. Some of them, genetically, man, you're like, gosh, of course you played 15 years in the league. Look at you. You're a 60-year-old man and you're, looks great. Yeah. But some people you meet, they're 45 years old and they look like they're 70. Right. They have all kinds of health conditions and things that are wrong. And, I took this, anti-inflammatory, but at the time it destroyed my liver. So, now I'm on dialysis because, I didn't know that, Vioxx or Bextra was bad for me as an anti-inflammatory. And so you have all these issues. And so you meet these people and your heart goes out to them. And, but then you start saying, wait a minute, that's going to be me. That could possibly be me if I don't take care of myself. Yep. So look, I made some decisions along the way to play at times when I probably shouldn't. Mm-hmm. I made some decisions at times to, when my shoulder's separated and it's not going to go back in the joint, they just tape it up and put a little Novocaine in it and I go play.
Yeah, right.
I've done that more often than not,
right.
And in the name of competition and that warrior inside of me, but you're going to pay the piper someday. So I am lessening the blow of Father Time. I am continuing to try and outrun that older, decrepit version of myself that's chasing me. He's chasing me.
Right.
I get up and I work out, and I finish my workout. I'm like, he's eating my dust, and as long as I keep running, as long as I keep forging forth, and finding different ways to stay fit, and I think it makes all the difference in the world. I have to believe that anyway.
What are some of the most important things that you consider that you do now to stay ahead of that guy that's running behind you? In terms of, I know obviously working out, but what are some of the other things that you do?
I only drink 3 things. I drink coffee, I drink water, and I drink a little alcohol. So don't drink a lot of alcohol at all. Have about every night before I go to sleep, I pour myself about a half a shot of either bourbon or scotch. That's my normal nighttime, ritual.
What's your favorite bourbon or scotch?
I like Woodford Reserve or Angel's Envy.
Mm-hmm.
I like Bullet. I like Maker's Mark. And I'm more of a single malt scotch guy. So I'm into Macallan.
I love Macallan. Yeah, love that stuff. A friend of mine got me a bottle of, I think it was 20. Was it a Macallan 25 or 20? And I had no idea at the time. I'd never had Macallan before, and I had no idea what I was drinking. And I started pouring it out for people in shots in the bottle. And he goes, "Dude," before you do that, you may want to look to see what that is." And I got through half the bottle, and I did that, and I'm like, "Holy shit! I'm putting this away."
I hope they were people that you cared about.
They were. They were. It was my own birthday party. So it was worth it, but I didn't know what I was pouring. So for me, I drink tons of water. Okay.
I drink water all day, all night.
How much is tons? Just out of curiosity, how much is tons? Out of curiosity, do you know? Do you measure it? Is it a gallon a day? Is it a liter, 2 liters?
I've never measured it, actually. What I do is, in our house, we have these water coolers. We have the big jugs of water that we replace.
Yeah.
Gets delivered. And I keep a glass, and it's a 16-ounce glass. Mm-hmm. I keep the glass right on the counter next to the water cooler. And there's one next to the water cooler downstairs, and there's one next to the water cooler upstairs in our house. And literally, and my son, he for a while he thought that the glass was magic because it would always be full of water, and he never saw me fill it, And he says, "Dad, why is there always a full glass of water there?" And I'm like, "I drink that glass and fill it up like 10 times a day." And he's like, "I never see you fill it up. I see you drink it. But then I turn around and it's magically full again." So long story short, basically, I literally walk. Like when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is walk to the water cooler and drink 3 glasses of water. I literally take down 3 16-ounce glasses of water where I'm like just full of water.
Yep.
And that usually helps in my morning routine.
Yep.
And kind of gets my body going. And all day, I seriously, like whenever I walk past the water cooler, I drink it. When I'm out, I make sure there's always no less than 2 bottles of water in my truck at all times. Before my workout, during my workout, after my workout, with dinner, all I drink is water all day. Right. I drink 2 cups of coffee usually a day. I may have a cup in the afternoon if I'm dragging a little bit, but 3 cups of coffee, countless glasses of water, probably at least 8 to 10 glasses of water a day, plus whatever I drink outside of my house. So I've never actually kept a count, but that's a good thing. I might keep a container and just measure. Just to
get some idea. Are you, if you drank 10, 16-ounce glasses of water a day, that's 160 ounces. You're at gallon and a gallon and a quarter, gallon and a third, about. So
I chug it.
Yeah.
All day,
and but now you're a big guy. So like,
yes.
how much do you weigh now? Like now that you're not playing?
That's a little personal, man.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I almost said sorry. Are you okay sharing how much you?
Yeah. You know what? The first thing I did when I retired, talk about lifestyle change, is I lost 40 pounds. So
wow.
I was like probably 310, 315 at my heaviest. By the time I ended my career, so it probably wasn't 40. So by the time I ended my career, I simply couldn't be that heavy and keep the weight, because the older you get, the
harder that is on all your joints, on your body.
On your body and joints. So to play a game that I played when I was 27, and could be 315, I could, run all day, run through 8 brick walls, and I'm 310, and I'm 20, I'm 25, 26 years old, and man, nothing hurts. Yeah. But when you're 35 and you're still in the locker room, and I couldn't be 310. Yep. So I was about 290, 295 towards the end, but immediately I lost like 30 pounds. Like I was down to 260 like that. And I think it was kind of drastic, and people were like, "Are you okay?"
Right.
With your health? And I stopped eating as much, because eating had become a chore at that point. Because when you're 35 and you're playing a game with 22-year-olds, you can't eat chili cheese fries for energy. When you're a young man, it doesn't matter what you can throw all kinds of, if you're shoveling coal into the furnace, it doesn't matter if there's a few sticks or rocks or stuff like that. It just goes up in smoke and gets burned and uses fuel, but not when you're 37 years old.
Right.
So I had to eat clean and eat so much to get the same energy when I was out there. And I got tired of it. Yeah. That was one of the biggest reasons I retired from pro football, is I got tired of the maintenance.
Yeah, right.
The maintenance that it took to hydrate and eat. And I had to eat so much to power my body at that point, getting older. And I had to stretch so much. I had to ice so much. I had to, had to warm up so much earlier than everyone else. That's what made me retire. I got tired of the maintenance on my body and everything I had to do just to be able to play this game. Yeah. I used to be able to wake up, eat 3, egg muffins, a couple of hash browns, throw back a couple of, waters, Gatorades, doesn't matter. Hey, run, go play, drink 20 beers, I'm good. No, man. When you get older, that stuff doesn't work anymore.
Right. I totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, it was a welcome lifestyle decision for me to lose weight when I left the game. And I wanted to see like how I felt devoid of having this stress on my body. So I didn't do anything for when I first retired. I just stopped. I just said, I'm gonna eat well, but I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna feel what it's like to not have to make my body work. I'm gonna feel what it's like to not have to ignore the pain that I know that's there because I've got a game Sunday. And you can think about that pain if you want to, but all it's going to do is make you worry about whether you're going to be able to play or not. So you just ignore it. You just ignore it and keep going. And I didn't want to do that anymore. Yeah. So when I lost 30 pounds, I was in the most pain I'd ever felt in my life. And it was the scariest thing in the world. Here I was, 30 pounds lighter. My joints hurt. My insides hurt. Every injury I had ever had came back to me over the course of a month's time. Every day I would wake up and something else felt like I just injured it.
Wow.
Over my career span. And I think that was just kind of cathartic. My body was kind of going through, finally being able to react to all these things that I've been repressing for so long. But then that's the time I got busy. That's the time I got back and started working out again, because when I worked out, I didn't hurt. When I trained, when I took care of myself, when I stretched, when I maintained my body, to some degree, the more I maintained it, the better I felt. It makes sense because the more I maintained it as I got older in the NFL, the longer I could play. Yeah. So if I'm going to live my life, if I maintain my body, then the longer I'll live. So, I got into the habit then. I made the decision, I'm going to be like my wife. Like, I'm going to be that person where, we'll drink these little clean juice things, and I'll make sure I'm taking all my vitamins every day. I'm drinking a ton of water. You know, hey,
do you have a certain diet? Do you have a certain diet you follow? Like, do you have a certain diet you follow or way of eating that you subscribe to?
I read a book years ago called The Lean Bodies Diet, and it was so basic that it was smart, and it was like, look, you don't have to do all these crazy shakes and this and all that to lose weight or to be your best self. All you have to do is observe some simple rules. Make sure that all your meals are balanced with protein, complex carbohydrates, and not too many simple sugars and fats or starches. But you do need some starch, but you need good starch.
Yep.
We need carbohydrates, but we don't need simple carbohydrates. Stay away from white flour, white rice. If it doesn't have any oats or grain in it, then it's not good for you. So I literally just started eating. When I would have a meal, I would eat meat and veggies and, a healthy starch. Whether it's a baked potato or a baked sweet potato or something like that. I started making better choices when I ate based upon this book. And I just, it was a basic kind of blueprint for how to govern my diet. And then that's kind of what I live by now. And so now whenever I sit down and eat, I make sure that my meals are balanced. I make sure that if I get hungry, my in-between snacks are pieces of fruit or a non-GMO or non-whatever, like a healthy protein bar. Like I like those little cup of gold. I grab the gold bars.
I've never had those.
Something that's gluten-free and just a good little, And so that's what I do now. I make sure every meal, like this morning, I had an egg white omelet with wheat toast. And, I had some yogurt and granola. Now, do you avoid fat? Like it's egg whites. Is that because of the cholesterol or because of fat, or why do you avoid the yolk? And do you avoid fats? I try to avoid fats whenever I can. I try to avoid saturated fats. So I try not to eat a lot of butter and stuff like that. And like the egg yolks, because I know there's going to be other ways that I'm not going to be that healthy. I know when it's time for me to have dessert, I'm going to eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's. That's my poison.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not going to say no if my wife makes a cake or makes brownies or something like that. I'm going to enjoy my life.
Yeah.
But my everyday practice is that I'm mostly disciplined. So it gives you the flexibility. If you're always doing the right thing, if you're always drinking tons of water, and that's all I drink. I don't drink soda. I don't drink, iced coffees and teas and all this stuff. I drink water all day, every day.
Right.
So it gives me the flexibility when I say, oh man, we try this drink. Let me try this thing or this new shake. I can have one of those because all I drink is water. So, and that's kind of the same way with my diet. I just eat well most of the time.
Yep.
And so I don't really think about it. It's become a lifestyle change. It's become my life.
That's cool.
So I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, you and I function very, very similarly. I don't avoid the fat like you do, but in terms of eating well most of the time so that I can enjoy my, vices like ice cream. Ice cream happens to be one of my main vices. Pizza too. It's a weakness. It's kryptonite.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, look, I'm cognizant of the time because I know we're at the end of your allotted timeline. And I could probably, people know me on the podcast. I could go for another hour easily, but not everybody has that amount of time to give me.
Yeah, I'm good for a little longer if you are.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Yeah. 10 minutes? When do you want me to cut you off?
What do you think?
It's up to you. Totally. I didn't know if you want to go another 30 minutes, we'll go 30 minutes.
We'll go another half hour.
Oh, wow. Awesome. That's fantastic. Given that scenario. So let me think back where we just were. We're talking about nutrition. Are there any other wellness practices that you employ? Do you in terms of consciousness, meditation, journaling, organization, like how you keep your life straight, like in those areas so that you can be your best?
That's actually If anybody tells you that they have that aspect of their life figured out, they're lying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a practice, right? You're practicing to eventually have it handled, which you never will.
Right. And for me, my lifestyle has changed so dramatically over the last 10 years from what I was doing to what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. And then even within what I'm doing now, I have to find the space and the pockets of time to organize myself, devoid of a consistent work-life schedule that normal people that have a 9-to-5 job have.
Right.
There's a lot to be said for having a daily purpose, having somewhere to go, something to do, structuring your time. I know the goal, for most people is to, hey, I want to work from home or be my own boss, or I want to do this or whatever. But you're going to do that. You're going to have to be someone who is, you're going to have a full-time job managing your own sanity at the same time, and managing your own self-worth, how you feel. Because I can tell you, as a former professional athlete, one of the things you go through is an identity crisis. You wonder who you are. You wonder how you can contribute to this world.
You mean when you leave, when you stop?
When you leave the game.
Yeah, right.
So for me, when I retired, that transition into a different life was tricky. So I got into speaking at first. I kept doing my charity work, and then I got into broadcasting. And broadcasting for about 5 years when I was with ESPN gave me a consistency of schedule that it helped to regulate and manage my time. But that was only during, from July to December. The rest of the year, I was sort of back on the professional athlete time schedule, football schedule, like timeline again, because I was seasonal. Yeah. But it made me face another challenge as far as structuring my time and doing things. And that's why I say it's a work in progress. There have been times where, when I've had something more consistent, that I've been able to structure it better. But now, it's funny that you asked that question. Out of everything we've talked about, and I know there are good things. I'm gonna turn over an area of my life right now and expose something and be vulnerable to you a little bit. That's something that I'm actually really struggling to find right now, is because I know that. Okay, here's a scenario. My wife is got her master's in clinical social work. She is starting to practice now as an LCSW. Mm-hmm. She's also doing government grant work, working for charities and foundations that lobby for children's rights and kinship care and foster system and stuff like that, government aid. So she is forging her way in doing that. I need to be there for her. I don't have a consistent broadcast gig. It's not football season right now. It's it's the off season. So I'm around. I'm the person who buys the groceries. I'm the person who goes to the cleaners. Uh-huh. I do the dishes. I communicate with all of the people that service our house and deliver the water and everything. And guy coming to fix the fridge and coming to work on the AV system. It's like it's me. I'm Mr. Mom. So at different times in your life and within your marriage, you take on different roles and you put on different hats. And I'm really in a space right now where I'm doing my charity work. I'm coaching high school football. Our son is 17 years old. He is a junior, about to be a senior in high school. He's a great kid. He's got a 4.4 GPA. Wow. He took his SAT once. He scored a 1310. He wants to go to a really, really good school. He's going to take his SAT again. He's trying to get over 1,500 because he wants to go to an Ivy League school or something like that. But we have the complication of football in our life now. And after 17 days of playing football, he now has 2 Division I offers already on the table. So he's got to decide whether or not to go and play college football or college basketball or whatever. I only say all that, I'm bragging as a parent, but I'm also saying that, my child needs me in a capacity that my lifestyle allows me to be around. So I could be seeking to be an extra in a movie, or I could be seeking, other broadcast gigs, or seeking something or doing something else, really trying to occupy my time with chasing more stardom and, building upon the platform that I've created. But right now, I don't want to do that. Right now, there's a stronger calling for me to be a husband, a dad. My wife is, she was valedictorian of her high school. She's from Jamaica. She's there on the English school system. So she's brilliant. She graduated high school at like 15 and a half, 16 years old. And I only say that to say that, she's got 2 master's degrees and she's brilliant, but she's chosen to be my wife. She chose to be a stay-at-home mom, to give our child the wonderful existence and give me as a dad just the hero reception and structure of my life outside of football. I had such a wonderful wife who created this environment outside of what I was doing. And so I owe that to my family now, to be there for them in this capacity. So managing my time and managing structure and everything else right now is it's been a challenge, not because of the obligation, the obligations give me structure. Being there for them gives me structure. So that's the one consistent thing. But the other part of that is, how do I feel about myself and what I'm doing and my contribution? What is my plan going forward? And that's where there's a struggle, because I have to balance, how much you want to chase it, how much you want to forge and do something, and how much you want to be there for your kids and your family and your wife. So that's always a constant thing. But I think right now I'm being called upon in a different way to be there for my family. And that's it's good and it's bad. It's good because you can only give to people within spaces of time in their life when they really need you. Yeah. And, because my wife didn't need me before, but she needs me now. My son needed me in a different way when he was younger, but now he's playing the sport that I played 14 years as a professional, and he's navigating a landscape and that he's never been in before. I can be there for him. And more importantly for me, I get to share in his experience. How awesome is that for us to be that and have that and share that at this time? I'll never get that back. But lifestyle structure, that's the one thing that my wife, my wife is trying to forge her own set of tools to be a better social worker, to be a better counselor, to be a better listener. So she gave me a book on mindfulness. And I don't want to mess up this person's name, and I'll have to text it to you or whatever, but it's an Asian name, and it's this on mindfulness, and there comes from the Buddhist monks, and they practice this mindfulness, really being.
Is it Pima Chodron? Is it Pima Chodron?
No, it's Chow Not Ting or something. It's somebody, but anyway. My wife is doing this whole mindfulness, and it's not really a religious thing. It's more of just and people mistake it. People think, oh, I thought you were Christian. What are you doing? Talking about it like, no. It's not. This is the mindfulness to be in your skin, to be present in the moment, to be where you are. If you happen to be in a situation or circumstances that you don't like, there's a way to find joy and peace and bring that to every situation that you're in. And there's also a meditation that goes along with that. So I'm actually reading this book on mindful meditation and being present, so that I can be a better listener, because I'm really in a service capacity to my family right now. So I'm trying to make that transition. So talk about mindfulness or meditation. I mean, I pray in the morning and I pray at night. That's just a habit I've gotten into when I was a kid that grew up in just an archaic Southern Baptist church. And we were in church all day on Sunday and everything else. And I'm not quite that churchy or religious-y, but the spirituality is something that has stayed consistent with me within my heart. And it's something that I think, that's who fuels, I think that's the motivation that fuels who we are and what our contribution is to others while we're here on this planet is how we're It's how we're led, or how we're, how God speaks to our heart. It's, why are you here? What are you trying to do? We all get caught up in the rat race, but there has to be an underlying thing or impetus or purpose that we're all working towards. And for most of us, it's love. It's love of something, whether it's love of money or love of your family or whatever. But that mindfulness is what I'm trying to build right now, just to be present in everything that I do so that I can enrich every interaction and circumstance I find myself in.
Hey guys, sorry for the last interruption, but I wanted to remind you that this podcast lives and breathes based on your reviews in iTunes and you being willing to forward it to a friend. So if you're getting something out of this conversation and you think a friend might, do me a favor and send them a link. Actually, do the world a favor and send them a link. The more people we get listening to these conversations and then being willing to step up and change their lives, or learning a tidbit from one of these conversations, the better it is for everybody. So do me a favor and do that. And if you're feeling really good, please go to iTunes and leave a review. The easiest way to do that is to go to the link bit.ly/Andy Petronic Podcast. That's bit.ly/Andy Petronic Podcast. And that should open up iTunes for you, and you can go to ratings and review and leave a little ditty. So thanks again. Thanks for indulging this little reminder, and let's get back to the show.
Well, I think it's interesting, what speaks to me about what you're saying is defining what success means. Like if you're, if you project yourself forward 30 years and you're looking back over your life, what would have to have happened for you to be able to say my life was successful? And I think for each of us, there's a different answer. Maybe there's not. Maybe it's all the same and, it's all just love. But I think perhaps there is a way to define that. So you can put in some landmarks, some things okay, I know that success means to me that financial, that's one area. And then emotional, and then, relationships or friends or whatever those things are, I think spending time on that question is incredibly valuable, because then you're not just working to work, and I think a lot of people are working you're busy. You're just busy at doing what? And is what you're busy doing leading to your definition of success? And if it's not, well, first of all, most people don't even know.
Right.
That question stops them in their tracks.
Yeah. Most of us are on the hamster wheel of life.
Yeah.
Most of us are just grinding our gears. We're caught in Groundhog Day, day after day, the same reality, or we're caught in checking off tasks. Yeah. And I find myself guilty of this all the time, and which is why I make lists of things that I have to do. But I can truly tell you this, though, man, when I check off those things on a list, it makes me happy.
Yeah, right.
It really gives me a satisfaction.
I agree. Me too.
And these days, I'm drawing that motivation and that happiness from, I've got to go to the grocery store. I've got to buy a ground turkey and vegetables because our dog is allergic to everything. So we cook for him now. Wow. And I'm the one who cooks for the dog. So I'm thinking in my head, I've got to brown the turkey meat for the dog. I have an Orange Theory class I got to get to. I have to go to the grocery store and because my wife says that she's going to cook, but she wants me to buy the stuff so that she can cook when she gets home from work. I've got to, go and, make these calls because I've got this charity event going on. I've got to call these sponsors. I've got, I've all these little things to do. And maybe 10 years ago, that would have been a different list of things that I would have had to have checked off.
Stretch, mobilize, ice, workout, take your supplements.
Right.
It's all about performance. I totally yes.
But even on a macro scale, just for my life, you talk about happiness and what it looks like. 15 years ago, if you'd asked me what happiness or success would look like at 45, I would have told you, I left the game on my own terms, healthy, I'm doing games or doing broadcasting for this network, and I'm busy. I'm at the ESPYs. I'm backstage of, the Grammys. I'm this and that. Fast forward to reality. I'm 45, and you couldn't pay me to be at that many events. You couldn't pay me to be that busy working and doing all of that. All that stuff is fun, and it's fun to step into that lifestyle every now and then. But my daily existence of, the mundane activities, being that I'm serving my family, and being that, like, when I look at my relationship with my wife, okay, 22 years of marriage, I know ball players, I know powerful men who've done well. Their relationship with their wife isn't like mine. She's my best friend. I can truly say that. Like, we like hanging out together. Mm-hmm. We get pissed off with each other. We will go for a half a day where we know we're just not talking. And it's, but we come around, we're there. The understanding and the communication that I have with her, the relationship I have with my child, being that I've spent time investing in his life. And, I was the BP coach for baseball. My son played baseball for a long time. And I had no greater joy in my life than to have my shoulder worn out and be pelted by a few baseballs in the cage an hour before every baseball game we played, because I'm sitting there emptying a bucket of balls, getting all these kids ready to play. Yep. And, of course, they go on to the park and they're taking grounders, and you're left picking up all the balls and lugging, and I'm covered in sweat. Yep. But that was my existence in my off season with my son. So now when he's at high school and he works out, or he goes to work out with his trainer outside of school, who's a friend of mine that I play ball with, when he goes to work out with them, and I'm there, I take him, I go to his 7-on-7 practice, and I take him, and I'm able to be in the space with him, and my relationship with him is wonderful. It's great. I can talk to him. He can talk to me. He tells me things. That existence within my own family, under my house, I would have never had I not put the time in over the last 15 years. I would not have that relationship with my wife, and I could be like another guy, another ball player who has this family that he doesn't really know, has this wife that doesn't relate to him the same way, because she wants a real relationship, not just the fabricated one that you have when you're playing ball and you're so busy you can't be considerate, you can't be there, you can't be the best husband when you're in a profession like that. It's just all consuming, and it's a two-person profession, and there's a sacrifice that has to be made by that person, your spouse. Yeah. But that satisfaction of my life is so much more important to me now. And if you asked me 15, 20 years ago, my answer would have been different. But I'm so glad that I had the type of wife that challenged me to be a better man. Yeah. And that's one thing I truly believe too. If you're married to someone who doesn't frustrate you, that you don't get pissed off and you want to choke them out half the time or whatever, then you probably aren't in love. You probably don't have the best person for you. A person's not going to make you a better version of yourself. I'm a better man, a better person, and I'm getting into this mindfulness thing, and I know it's the best thing for me. It's going to help me organize my shit, get my crap on the same page with each other and be more consistent. But I begrudgingly, and I laugh at myself, but that's real. I think that's concrete. That's what sustains. That's true happiness. I see people, and people taking their own lives and the issues that we have. And, I read about Anthony Bourdain, and I feel so bad for his family. To be such a hopeless or such a place where you feel that that's the best alternative is a horrible place to be. But I truly believe that man's not meant to live alone. And the more you attach yourself and good relationships and invest in good people and good things, those things, you have a little bit more to lose. I have to be here. I got to be here for my kid. I got to be here for my wife. I've invested. I've done too much. I've worked so much in this foundation. I have to keep doing these events. I have to do charity.
There's a difference, though, I think, in how I hear you communicating. It's not just I have to, I want to.
Yes.
I think that's a really big difference.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't strike me as you're the kind of guy who's doing things because you have to. You're doing it because you actually want to. And that's a big shift that I think a lot of people could stand to consider making.
I feel charged.
Yeah.
I feel charged by life, but charged also by my circumstances. I think to whom much is given, much is expected. I think we are lucky and we're blessed to be born where we're born at this time in history. And no one can help that. Whether you're from,
it's 1 o'clock.
Whether you're from like a quote unquote, crap hole country, or whether you're from the United States, we can't help where we're born. But man, if you are born into certain circumstances and you do have certain, and you're healthy and you're not one of those people battling a life-threatening illness,
yeah,
you're charged. Life has charged you. And look, I grew up in a Baptist church, so I'm going to quote one of my favorite hymns as a child. Okay. And it says, "A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, who gave his son my soul to save and fitted for the sky. Do my master's will is my calling to fulfill. Be it all my powers engaged to do my master's will." And it's like, it's this long hymn, and you sing it out and everything, but the words touch me. The words say, a charge to keep, a charge to keep I have, a God to glorify. You've been charged because you've been given life. You've been charged because you exist. You've been charged because we're able to, experience love, union with another person, and create life. I mean, we're able to create magic, lightning in a bottle. We're able to bring forth another life that will have purpose and that will affect the world. Miracles that happen around us. That's what charges us with doing the right thing. And that's the thing. That goes back to the whole hero work, Superman complex, and everything else. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm a good guy. I don't like bad guys. I don't like bullies. I don't like the abuse of power or things that are less fortunate because, and I don't like the idea of thinking that I am more important than a child of a goat herder in Nepal. Why is my life any more important? Why should I have something and that person not? Why? So if that's truly the way you feel, and if you truly feel that, there's no difference and all life is sacred, then you'll live that way. Then if you are that person, when you get to this point, you'll make the right decision. And I haven't always made the right decision. Haven't always been a good man. Haven't always done the right thing. But man, people say, "Oh, you're such a good guy." No, and I tell them, I said, "No, I just try real hard.
Right.
I just try real hard for those that I care about." I'm sure some people I'm a scumbag, but
oh, it's 1 second. So I'm showing you. This is my Ring doorbell. My son is getting dropped off. Hey, Dash, are you there? Yeah. So he's getting dropped off. He's at the front door, and there's nobody there to let him in. I got to let him in. Can you give me like 2 seconds?
All good.
All right.
Does he know he's at the front door?
It's a front door cam when the doorbell rings. There's a little thing you can buy for your front door.
Yeah.
And it's just this little thing, module that's in the wall, and you can download the app. And when your doorbell rings or whatever, if you're on the Wi-Fi in your house, you can see it.
If I want one.
Yeah, they're all over now.
Isn't that amazing?
Technology is advancing rapidly.
It's just amazing.
So.
They have a mindfulness practice with the Whole Life Challenge.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a big thing right now. It's kind of a new trend.
Yes. Yeah.
Woo! Well, man, we've had everything go on in this podcast. Holy cow, this is not normal. But we're definitely you've over extended your generosity with your time, and I really, really appreciate you being here. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention that made me think of the mindfulness that you're working on. I had Michael Gervais on my podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago. He's a sports psychologist. With all these, actually, Pete Carroll is his partner from you know Pete Carroll is. And one of the things he talks about in his mindful training, there's something called the default mode network that is the part of your brain that is on when nothing else is going on. And its focus is on me. Everything it's this voice that if you don't know what voice I'm talking about, it's the voice that's telling you that, what the hell is he talking about? That voice. There's a constant voice, and it's called the default mode network. And he talked about in the podcast about how elite performers are able to shut that off when they're in their flow state. And that probably is true of an NFL football player or of a guy like Alex Honnold who climbs, without ropes up to Half Dome or El Cap. And mindfulness or meditation is normal people's, like us, access to shutting off that default mode network. It's really fascinating. It gave me a renewed interest in meditation because I've always struggled with keeping a regular mindfulness practice. And because, I don't know, doing nothing, I have so many things to do that I have a hard time convincing myself that it's worth it to not do something. Right. Like not doing is not doing something. It's not doing anything. And it's this, battle I have with myself. And so when he talked about that, it shifted my thinking. Like the act of not doing is not doing. It's actually practice at tapping into this different mental state where there is no default mode network happening, and you are one with your breath, you're one with the current moment. I don't know, for some reason that had a huge, that shifted something for me in my own meditation work. And it's, just for your own consideration, if you're interested, that's a really good podcast to listen to, but you might check out his work. It's pretty cool.
That does sound cool. I actually worked with a performance enhancement coach while I played. Actually, the person that introduced me to him was Dick Vermeil. And
cool. Yeah,
Coach Dick Vermeil. When I was a young man, he became my coach in my third year. I was playing with the Rams, my third year in the NFL, and he immediately recognized that I could be someone who could be a great player, but my emotional sensitivity got in my way.
Yeah, right.
That identity, turning on that switch, becoming that beast or that warrior or whatever, being sure of oneself, turning off the voice, turning off the default mode voice, and being able to just be present and just concentrate on what you're doing. Not worrying about the pain and the finger that I just broke, or the fact that I just got pancaked, or I jumped off sides. No, be present, be in the moment. 6 seconds at a time. Each play, each rep, each snap.
Yep.
And he helped me, find so many different things. But I think now the funny thing is I'm coming into this mindfulness. I'm being introduced to this mindfulness, and it's sort of bits and pieces of what I learned working with Phil, a person whose name's Phil Toll, and that it'll be interesting as I start this mindfulness practice where it will lead. But I think having that focus and having at the same, it's funny. I think we should maintain a balance between not taking ourselves too seriously, but also taking ourselves very seriously.
Yes.
We can't think that, what happens to us and it's just the end of the world and we can't dominate everyone else's circumstances with all of our crap and just, we take so much there's so much moving when we move and so much affecting. But at the same time, if no one else pays attention to the finite details of your life and making you better, how are you ever going to be your best self? You know, it's like, I tell my son, you know, I'm like, look, dude, you know, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself, you know, in order to take care of someone else, in order to be the best leader, to be the best version of yourself. Man, you got to be your biggest cheerleader. You got to have healthy thoughts in your head. You got to do. And my message to him is just, you know, put your hands out like this, you know? And I'm like, what do you see? And it's like, I see my 2 fingers. And I'm like, no. Like, there's a little box, right? You're forming a little box. I'm like, you put your hands out. It's lights, camera, action. This is your movie, the movie of your life. What is it? Is it a tragedy? Is it a triumph? Is it an action adventure? Is it a drama? You know, what kind of a movie is it? And I'm like, you're living your reality. You're living the greatest story that you will ever experience. The greatest movie you'll ever watch is a movie of your life. You're
writing the script and acting it out and being the director. Yeah.
You want a reality show? I'm like, this is your reality show, man. I'm like, so you have to regard your circumstances and how you do things as being important. I'm like, it's okay for you to, because he's a really unselfish, giving, soft-hearted kid. He's a lot like me, and he's, you know, and he sometimes he's not as aggressive, or he's not as, you know, you want your children to be tough. You want them to be able to take care of themselves and you want them to have a little edge to them, because this world isn't a nice place. So you want them to be able to be comfortable enough in their skin as to where they're nice, sweet, benevolent, nice people, but you want them to have that asshole right in their back pocket to pull out whenever they need them. So that to me is, talk about mindfulness, keeping that balance between those 2 things, between those 2 pieces, parts of yourself, and also being effective to those around you, I think is what I'm trying to do at this point in my life.
Well, I whether you think it or not, I mean, the impact that you're having on the world, whether it was just with your son, I mean, that to me, it's one of the greatest things we can do as humans, as dads, even as moms, you know, whatever, is to raise our kids in a way that lets them go out and be the leaders of tomorrow, that you know, the legacy that we leave. I really am greatly enrolled and inspired by your story, and appreciate everything that you're up to, because it's making a difference. You know, maybe the refrigerator repair guy and the, you know, dealing with the stuff around the house is the struggle, you know, but the big things that you're up to, the commitments that you have toward your own life and your success are really honorable, and I really appreciate you and what you're doing.
Thank you. You know, the biggest thing that I think for me at this point in my life is to be able to look in the mirror and like the person that I see.
Yeah.
So sometimes my ego has to be put in check, because when I turn on the tube and I see someone else, or I see someone broadcasting, or I see something, or I'm like, oh, I could do that, or I could be doing this, or, you know, and you think it must not be for me. It's not where my life is taking me right now. And I have to be mindful, and I have to be happy and satisfied, and I have to be present in my own circumstances in order to do justice and honor to the piece of myself for where life is calling me to be. Right. And that's the hardest thing, is to not take myself too seriously, as to where I'm like, man, you know, I played 14 years in the NFL. I could do a better job, you know, doing these games on the weekend, or it's just balance. I think the ever-growing, never-ending challenge of life is balance, and balance between achievement, balance between good relationships, balance between your own sanity, but also balance for what's superficial, what's substance, and what's real, you know, and what's superficial. I think superficiality over substance right now is a big thing right now. And I'm proud of myself that I'm able to do what satisfies my soul more than what satisfies my number of followers on Twitter.
Totally.
So
once again, I appreciate the time you've given and your generosity, and I really appreciate you and what you're doing.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Andy, and thanks so much for listening. If you want to know more about what I'm learning each month, head over to andypetronic.com and subscribe to my monthly newsletter. If you were touched, moved, or inspired by anything you heard today, chances are someone else you know would be too. Please take a moment to think about who and send them a link to this episode. And if you're super stoked, please head over to iTunes to write a review. The best way to keep current on guests and episodes is to subscribe so that the latest one will automatically get delivered straight to your phone. The apps I used for this are Apple Podcasts, Overcast, or Pocket Casts. The Andy Petronic podcast is produced by our team, Winslow Jenkins, Becca Borowski, and Ernie Hurtado. Big thanks to Nikki Grudidaria for the artwork. You can find all of our episodes, links, and complete show notes at wholelifechallenge.com/podcast. I'm Andy Petronic. Thanks for listening.